Okay, my name is officially Maurice James Bent. For one reason or another, I was early in my Air Force career nicknamed Slim. I was more eligible for that nickname then than I am now, but the Slim gradually changed over to my second name, which I shortened to Jim, and that's generally how most of my friends know me today. I joined the Air Force. I was accepted November the 23rd, 1940. I was posted to, well, I was attached to Manning Depot in Toronto, and after about 4 weeks in Manning Depot, I was transferred to Rockcliffe, the #1 photo establishment there, which was on the 23rd of December, a great time to arrive, of 1940. And shortly after that, I was able to get involved in the public relations photographic section, and having hit there with a reasonable reputation, I was promoted quite rapidly to the rank of flight sergeant. And early in 1944, I was posted to Calgary to theoretically be commissioned, but it was too late for any further ground crew commissions, so I remained a flight sergeant. When they were closing the Air Command in Calgary, I was transferred to Winnipeg, which will be about October or November of 1944. And I was in Winnipeg for about 6 months. And then I was transferred to Edmonton, to Northwest Air Command headquarters. And from Edmonton, I managed to cover a large part of northern Canada, including a trip over the North Magnetic Pole, which was unusual in those days. But my discharge came through, I think, for the 11th of December of 1945. And then I was left to provide for myself, which fortunately worked out quite well for me. No complaints. However, going back to Air Force days, I was fortunate in getting into the public relations photographic section under then Flight Sergeant Norman Drolet, who shortly after I joined the section was removed, commissioned, sent overseas, and came back as Wing Commander Drolet. However, when he left, the section was taken over by one NCO who was senior to me, and when he was posted out, I stepped into the #1 position in that photographic section, which wasn't a bad spot to be in, really. But I had a few amusing incidents, one of which was as a result of a private party that I went to one night. And it was a party which was practically all service people. There were 1 or 2 civilians, and I think they were both fairly well up in government circles. But the one person that I did recognize was a group captain, and I knew who he was, but he did not know who I was, other than the fact that I was Slim. So one day I was at Air Force headquarters, and they had some civilians working in the department, plus Air Force personnel up to the rank of wing commander. And 4 of us decided to go out to lunch together. So that was 1 civilian and myself, and 2 pilot officers who were quite new to the service. We were walking along, I think it was Elgin Street in Ottawa, heading for someplace to eat. And I see this group captain whom I'd met at the party coming towards us. Well, he saw me about the same time I saw him, and immediately, broke out into a smile and said, "Slim, how are you? Nice to see you." And I said, well, I thought, I've got to do something here. So I said, "Oh, hello, Ken. How are you?" And with that, we sort of walked past each other. And there was no hint of a salute, but he wasn't worried about that. But the 2 pilot officers following us, didn't realize this, that it was a friendly gesture in our part, so they didn't bother to salute. Well, if you know anything about military procedure, a very junior officer does not ignore a very senior officer. So the group captain stopped these 2, and in the language of the times, he really tore a strip off them, both of them. And when he finally let them go, and of course the civilian and I were standing about 50 yards ahead, just watching and laughing. And when they caught up to us, the first question was, "How the H do you get away with not saluting your group captain, and we get H for not doing it?" I said, "Oh, it's a matter of knowing your way around." And I made it as casual as I could. Well, I didn't think they'd ever speak to me again after that, but we became pretty good friends. In fact, on one occasion with one of them, we were on an assignment near Montreal. They were opening a school for officers, new officers. And by this time, I think he had been promoted to flying officer. And he was, he knew his way around, but he and I still did not salute each other. But this day, when we arranged to meet on this station, the only place we knew of that we could both find was the parade ground. So we're out there fairly early in the morning looking for each other, and also the wing commander in charge of the station is there setting up the arrangements for later, the proceedings that were going to take place. So this friend of mine is sort of slouching over towards me, and so I came to attention and saluted him. And he looked at me as though I'd gone out of my mind, and he said, "What is going on?" And I said, well, I tried to do it without moving my lips, but I said, "The wing commander is just behind you, sir." Oh, okay. So he returned a very sloppy salute, but at least he'd followed in the protocol. But it's just one of those things that happens, and like the first time I put him on the spot, the second time I saved him from being on the spot. Generally speaking, I found out that, and I think almost anybody in the service will agree with this, that the higher the rank, the easier they are to get along with. And that not only applies to officers, I think it applies to NCOs as well. At least I always tried to treat the people under me with respect, and I think they appreciated it. I didn't have any of them screaming back at me, but I very seldom screamed at them either.